Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video. I just happen to have a Bach bass trumpet in hand after just talking about it in my previous video about Bach numbers and letters on their instruments. No, this is not mine. These cost like $4 grand plus. I'm not about to spend that on a bass trumpet. But I have a friend who has one. I actually have several friends that own these for some reason. And I just happened to borrow it right now. And you can see it says it's a Stradivarius model question mark. I actually don't know, because this is a New York. This is a very early Bach. I don't know if they had a model number at the time. I can't find that information. Someone will probably know. Now, these are known as the B188. I don't know, what that means, where that slots in with the rest of the bass trumpet range by Bach. These are the B188 now. I think at the time, it might have just been Bach bass trumpet. No number. And here it is. It's a piston valve, 3-valve bass trumpet. We've got the trumpet valve cluster, or at least heavily trumpet related. I recently looked into new valves for my needle bass trumpet, which, I enjoy. And it turns out that the valve cluster is not the same tubing arrangement that a trumpet would have. Some things would be flipped around. I think the third valve slide, there's some stuff that's in the wrong spot. So I could not just swap in a trumpet valve cluster and it would work. And as far as I can tell, the Bach looks the same. So I don't think it is exactly a trumpet valve cluster. I'm sure Bach at the time had the ability to change some ports and stuff around. So it was mostly trumpet valves, in bore size and all that kind of stuff, but suited for the bass trumpet. You can tell it's very early because it's got the 2-piece valve casings with the brass bottoms, nickel tops. Obviously it says New York on it several times. It's got the little stamp on one side. It's got the stamp on the bell, of course. Pretty early 7000 series serial number. And yeah, it's a good player. Differences to my Liedl, which is similar-ish looking instrument, but is not actually really the same at all. You can see the Bach has much more tubing before the valves. So check it out. We start here, go all the way to here, come back. Then we got this tiny little crook, whoop, and we come back over here. This is all still lead pipe tubing. I'm not sure if it's gotten larger yet. Maybe it has. Might be cylindrical. Get to this crook, whoop, and then we get into the valves. On the other side, coming out of the valves, we just have little crook here, bell. So this is kind of where the instrument starts to expand, whoop, just the last part, which is pretty trumpety. I just read a post about the Liedl actually, and how it's not very trumpety, because if you look, we've got a lead pipe into the valves. That's it. That's all the lead pipe we get. It's a lot like a trumpet actually, and I'm pretty sure that this tuning slide is straight up from like a B-flat trumpet. It is not a wider span like the Bach. But then if we go to the other side, this comes out of the valves, gets bigger, gets bigger. Oops, sorry, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, and we get to a belt. Of course, the belt is smaller than the Bach by like probably an inch. So it's a large difference. But there's a lot of conical tubing on this compared to the Bach, which is interesting because, of course, this sounds much brighter. I think they both have a good bass trumpet sound. It's just that the bass trumpet sound encompasses a lot of different sounds because there's not a set sound that they all have. This has a very kind of like larger Bach quality to it. It's really got that Bach like color, I believe. A little more to the middle, not as many of the higher overtones. Whereas the Liedl really has that brightness, that very trumpety sound, despite being more conical than the Bach. It really just has that zing, especially when you play loud. Is that always what you want? Absolutely not. If you're going to play like jazz or any kind of music that is not orchestral music, probably going to want something like this Bach, which is what the owner uses it for. They use it for jazz. You can kind of use it like valve trombone or something and just play cool little smoky tunes, no microphone. It's going to sound great. The Liedl, not as great at that, largely because the Bach is just so much more even. First and second partials, or second and third partials, I should say. Like, no, that doesn't sound amazing for like a trombone or euphonium or something, but for bass trumpet, it is remarkably easy down there. And that range also feels pretty even. I can just play B's and have a nice tuning slide kicker so I can actually attempt to play them in tune. The Liedl is not the same. Those ranges are on the instrument. I can play a low E, but it is very small. It's pretty nasal sounding. I am using a smaller mouthpiece on this. This has a jet tone earthy green. You want to use a small mouthpiece on bass trumpet. And this really seems to match pretty well both my face and the instrument. And this is using a Griego Oft alto mouthpiece, which is not massive, but it is larger than the earthy green. That's definitely part of it, but they seem like a good match for the instruments themselves. If I swap them around, I largely get the same results. And that said, the second partial on this is not good. I can play the notes, but they are not great. And then third partial, of course. If I play it just right, those B's come out. I can play them kind of loud-ish, but there's a lot of resistance. And like if I play those B's loud enough, the first valve side will kick itself out because there's so much resistance in the horn pushing back. Doesn't feel amazing. Let's just put it that way. The higher ranges, again, have more resistance, but they slot in and feel pretty good on this. This has less resistance up there. It's going to be a little less help than the Liedl does, but it feels good. It feels like I can just play those notes. There's no weird resistance. It's not too open. There's no slot. It has actually about the same intonation tendencies that the Liedl does, where the fifth partial, the D, is a little bit too low. I would probably play D's 1 and 2, valve slide out a little bit. D flats have to be 2 and 3. And no, you can't kick. I wouldn't do anything. And my Liedl has basically the same issue. The D is mostly okay. You can play that note. The D flat is way flat, like uselessly flat. And of course with 2 and 3 it is a lot stuffier, so you can play that note, but it's not super fun. So there's just a little bit of a demonstration. I like my Liedl. It's not the best bass trumpet on the planet. It was very cheap. This was like $700 all in. And it is a basically new-ish bass trumpet that makes bass trumpet noises. That's my favorite part about it. It sounds, to me, like bass trumpet. The box, like I said, these are like $4,000 and up, like $4,500. And they sound a little bigger, a little wider, a little warmer. And sometimes I don't know if that would be the right sound for me. If I were going to have one bass trumpet, and I'm not playing jazz, which is not what I would use it for, I'm not sure if I would get a Bach. Of course, this has largely the same issue that contras have. There's extremely cheap contras that are bad, like my Lidl, even though I think it's a little bit of a tier above the like very bottom level contras. And then there's a huge gap, and then there's like the more expensive but still not very good Chinese contras. That's not what this is. And then there's used instruments that are just a little bit too expensive. They're like $6,000 and $7,000 in contra land, and they're like, okay, that's where this lands, where it's like, it's pretty good, but you're still spending like just a lot of money on it. And then the really good instruments are above $10,000, which is the same thing in bass trumpet land. The 4-valve Leish Tyne instruments that are rotors, playing like this, those are amazing instruments. They are good for anything orchestral that you throw at them, but they cost like $13,000. And that just, it completely prices out someone like me who's like, I would like to have a good bass trumpet. And this is one of the options, but it's probably not the option I would choose. So for now, I stick with the Lidl, and if I really need a good horn, I probably borrow one. I will say, I just about got called for like a really cool gig, playing with an orchestra, and so I went out and borrowed this very quickly. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna get a good bass trumpet. I'm gonna use that because I like my Lidl, but I don't know if it's ready for the big times. And of course, like all Bachs, it's too long. That orchestra plays at 442. This does not. This is at 440, just barely with everything pushed in all the way. So even if I had wanted to, I could not have played this with an orchestra without having it cut. Someone told me that this is the best place to have it cut because you just take off some of the cylindrical tubing, whoop, and take it down. Other people have had these cut to C, so you cut everything, whoop, proportionally by however much that is, and the whole horn just gets shorter, and apparently they play great in C. Thankfully, I guess, my Lidl has enough room to get up to like 443 with a tuning slide all the way in. So I would actually have been able to use this quite easily in orchestra, and I was preparing to do so. It did not happen. I'm going to return the Bach bass trumpet, even though it's very cool. And hopefully we all learned something about Bach bass trumpets. Good horns, but in that middle tier where it's perhaps not a great purchase unless you're really looking for that specific sound. That's all I got. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.